Recording right now.
Yeah.
How can you get bored with evolution?
I don't know.
There's so much.
There is. There's a lot more to it than people think. Definitely.
There's way more to it, and I listen to a YouTube channel, Gut Sick Gibbon, is what she goes by. Oh, okay, so you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
And she does what I studied in school. She's just, she's going all the way to PhD, and I believe she's already defended her thesis. And there's so much new stuff that they have found since I graduated in 92. I mean, we're talking 33 years ago that I graduated, 32 years ago. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much stuff since then that have been found.
Well, a lot of people either misunderstand evolution altogether, what it is, and I would think it's one concept when it's many, it's broken down to so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. So, just learning about it, you're just blown away.
Yeah. And I didn't realize, I kind of knew, but never had anyone just say it to me. It's like I read it and I figured it out myself. But I was listening to a video by Forrest Valkai the other day as well.
Forrest too.
And Center for Inquiry, he was given a lecture how to talk to creationists about evolution. And he was talking about how there pretty much aren't any, missing pieces anymore. I mean,
not really, no.
Yeah. And I kind of knew that. I just never had anyone who knows way more than me come out and say it.
Yeah, we understand why more or less any species would evolve, could evolve, or what I'm studying now, the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, in a case wouldn't evolve. Mm-hmm. So we know all of that. So there's not a lot of room for doubt. There's plenty of, like you said, new things that are discovered, new avenues that you can go down, but ultimately, you basically know your way around.
Yeah. And so the last few days I've caught up on those, and then I listened to this guy, Alex O'Connor, who's a philosopher, and he's also an atheist, and he was talking, Dr. Justin something, I can't remember his name, but he's got a YouTube channel called Esoterica, and he lays out stuff from the Old Testament very clearly. A lot of the stuff I've been watching isn't anything new, but he provides different insights into it. It's kind of like when I went and studied the Old Testament, I took a class on the literature of Judaism. And I knew all these things, but I took this class from a rabbi. And so it's still the same things, but it's a slightly different perspective. And when we had read the Tanakh, I've read all of the Old Testament. I've read the Pentateuch, the entire thing. And the Tanakh is just basically what they call the Old Testament.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just use from time to time different words in translation, which is basically just the equivalent of, you could say that thing is pretty or that thing is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. You're still saying that it's beautiful, but if you use pretty versus gorgeous, you have different images in your head. And that's kind of how the Tanakh was when I read it. They used a different word, and some things just started to click. And this was back in 1990. And that's kind of how this guy's videos so far are. There are some new things that I'm learning, but he's also presenting things that I already know in that slightly different way that just kind of gets my mind going. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I hope that we do here.
I hope so. Someone's interested.
Yeah. I've started getting a couple of emails from people.
Did you?
Yeah.
Not complaints to get off. Okay.
No, that they like what we're doing. And when I got the email from Barb, because she knows a lot about the Oregon Trail, and she was, I don't know if she's still on the board at Legacy, but she was for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so when I got the email the first time, I was like, oh, what did I screw up? And it wasn't. She was just like, you've done a really good job, da, 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 da. And then she was like, did you know about this, 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 and this? So I have a list of like 5 more things that we can do that, no, I didn't know anything about that. And she got me the information. So
well, I'm glad someone's getting some use out of us.
yeah. At least we're not completely wasting our time. I'm still reading about the Battle of Blue Water Creek, and say that fast 3 times without screwing it up. Yeah. Because I've got a couple of books about it, and then the Smithsonian did a whole 11-page spread in their December issue, and I got a hold of one of those. Very weird. I could not order a single issue off of Smithsonian's website, but I went to eBay and someone was selling it on eBay, and they were selling it for like $3 more than what it costs. And I'm going, well, that's probably what it would cost to ship it to me anyway. So I got a copy of it so that I could read it. I tried reading the article because it is free on Smithsonian's website, and it just, to me, I'm very much a layout and look kind of person, and when it was online, the layout is slightly different and didn't have the same effect for me. So I'm still trying to do that, and then, we still want to do a Crazy Horse episode, and I've got 6 books or so on that, and how do you shrink that down? Because, when we do Crazy Horse, that's probably going to be a 4, 5, 6 part episode. And I want to do it right. I don't, because I could do just an hour-long episode, but I'd be leaving out so many cool things and so much information. I don't want to.
Where to begin,
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm starting to get overwhelmed with those, is because it is so many parts. But I felt a little better because I just watched Behind the Bastards 4-part series on Oprah.
Oh.
And a typical book about a person is around 50, 60,000 words. And Robert said he wrote 28,000 words for this 4-part series. And he said he started getting overwhelmed because he was like, what do I put in? What do I not put in? This kind of relates to that, but do we have time to do this, that? And I'm like, okay, so here's a dude that's been doing this for more than a decade, and he's still struggling with it. So it's, I don't know, it makes it the struggle a little easier to know that other people have it too.
And he's quite a big character to topple.
Yes.
And Crazy Horse is just, there's so much to the legend, there's so much to the history.
Yeah. I mean, just what I know about his childhood could easily be 1 or 2 parts, depending on how deep we want to go. Maybe I'll get that written, and then that'll just be, we'll take a 4-month break because we've written that many episodes.
And we're done.
And, I was thinking this morning, too, we always forget to say that this is storytelling on the plains. It is, and we're here.
We're here. We got right into it this morning.
We always forget that part at the beginning, but whatever. So today I decided, since we'd been doing a bunch of people and places, I was looking through some of my photos and some of the things I had written about one of the animals that was very prevalent here, not the bison, and that I have a few good photos of, and I thought, why not talk about them today? So I don't know if a lot of people know about bighorn sheep.
This is when we need our sound effects. A little sound effects going bang.
There you go. Like There's our sound effects.
Cut in.
See, this is why we're amateurs.
We're talk about sheep. Hope you're awake.
Well, you can look up on your phone while I start talking and find a sound of a bighorn sheep, and then just hit play into your phone.
Play it in there.
I'll be in the middle of a sentence and it'll just be like, bah. Thanks, Connor. Because I'm actually not sure the sound they make, because every time I've gotten too close to them, they just turn and run away.
They sound like sheep.
Do they?
I mean, to me, they sound like just like sheep.
Okay.
I wouldn't know the difference between a bighorn sheep and one of your pasture-raised sheep.
Okay. That's fine, because, most people can't.
Yeah.
Unless you specialize in that. I'm sure there's someone that'll be like, oh, bighorn sheep sounds like this, and a sheep on a farm that you shave for wool sounds like this. All right, that's cool. But anyway, so I wrote something a while ago, and I decided to kind of open it up that way so you can kind of get an idea of what we see out here when we see a ram. And a ram is a male bighorn sheep, and a ewe is a female. I get into that a little bit, but just in case you didn't know, rams are boys.
Rams are boys, yep.
So the ram looked up from eating his grass and met my gaze. He had been aware of me since I got out of my car in the parking lot at the Cedar Canyon Wildlife Management Area in southern Scottsbluff County. His herd was a 5-minute human walk away from me, but it took closer to 10 minutes as I was making sure not to startle the herd of about 15 bighorn sheep grazing at the base of Cedar Canyon's bluff. On this particular day, I was hiking with my friend Steve Frederick, and he let me use his 800mm lens to get some glorious photos, as I used glorious as an example before. Steve helped me get some of the best photos I ever had of bighorn sheep just by lending me his lens. That weighed like 900 pounds. I literally had to rest the camera on my left shoulder because I'm a little person. I had to rest the camera on my shoulder and lean back to look through the viewfinder, and then zoom in because I couldn't hold the camera in front of me. It was so heavy and so big, and we didn't have a monopod or a tripod to put it on. But I got some gorgeous photos that day, so it doesn't matter. I was only in pain for a little while. So today on Storytelling on the Plains, we're going to shift away from the people and places of western Nebraska and talk about one of its enduring animals, the bighorn sheep. And maybe we'll do that for some of the other animals that live out here. We'll do an episode on, maybe all the birds. I don't know if we just want to do one episode on bald eagles and one episode on turkey vultures and one episode on, Swanson's hawk or Swainson's hawk or the red-tailed hawk. Maybe we'll just do an episode on all of them. We're really
trying to get endorsed by PBS folks.
Yeah.
If you couldn't tell.
But, they're all birds. They're all raptors. Maybe we'll just do an episode on the raptors that live out here. But the bighorn sheep have been here probably longer than the people have. To give you a little background on the herds today and the history of the bighorn sheep, I'm going to be referring a lot to the experts at the National Park Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society, the U.S. Forest Service, and Canada's Ministry of Environment and Parks in the province of British Columbia. Their website had a lot of really good information about bighorn sheep. And people forget that the bighorn sheep went from all the way up in Canada all the way down to the border. Mm-hmm.
They're kind of everywhere where you don't expect them to be, and there they are.
Yeah. I think most people think Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana when they think bighorn sheep.
But they have bighorns in the Black Hills.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So a lot of people don't even think South Dakota and Nebraska, mm-hmm. and I'm like, no, they're over here, and traditionally, yes, they were over here too. They don't follow borders like we do. So I'll also be referencing a couple of things I've written about them, which aren't online anymore. I had written for a website for a while, and that website's no longer up, and I still have my notes, so I'm partly quoting from what I wrote and partly rewriting it because I could rewrite it better. And if it's my own work and I can rewrite it better, I'm going to. The herd in our neck of the woods can be found mostly in the southern part of Scottsbluff County and northern Banner County, where there is ample places to climb the edges of a nearby bluff or we call them mountains. They're not mountains. They're just other shaped buttes around the area. But we call, like Bead Mountain. We call it Bead Mountain, and it's really just a
I get
butte.
in this debate with my husband all the time. I don't even do it no more.
Yeah.
Call it what you want. I
Yeah.
don't even care.
I
Because
call-
his argument is that we're so far above the water line, it's still indeed a mountain. I'm like, oh, shut up.
Oh my God, he's
We're
going down
technically
that
the high
technically. Okay. I get where he's coming
'Cause
from, but
we're on the high plains plateau.
yeah.
So technically everything being so far above sea level is in line with the Colorado mountains in some way. It's like, no, just be silent.
Yeah, just be quiet. I'll just call stuff by their names, but yeah, they're more bluffs and buttes around
big,
here.
Medium-sized bumps in the land versus big bumps in the land.
Yeah, there you go. There is also another herd a couple of hours north of us along the Pine Ridge area. And to go all the way back to the beginning, wild sheep arrived in North America via the Bering Land Bridge about 750,000 years ago during the Pleistocene. They then spread across western North America all the way to Baja California and the northwesternmost part of mainland Mexico. From there, they diverged from their closest Asian ancestor roughly 600,000 years ago. And I tried as hard as I could to get all this information accurate, so please excuse me if I screwed things up, because there used to be a bunch of different species, and it gets confusing who's related to who when you're going down the taxonomy scale.
Oh yeah.
And
we're doing allele frequencies right
Yeah.
now. So yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, and it has been 92, so that's what, 30. I graduated in December of 92, so it's been what, 32 years?
It's been a while for me too.
32 years and almost 2 months since I ever studied this stuff, so I was recalling what was in my brain and also reading and trying to make sure everything's accurate. So please pardon me if I get something a little screwed up, but I think I got it all right. As time went on, the bighorn or the wild sheep diverged again into Dall sheep, Dall sheep in Alaska and northwest Canada, and bighorn sheep, which range from southern Canada to Mexico. And I'm not going to get into the potential hybridization of the sheep in this episode, because this is just the history of these dudes that live here. It's not a science episode, and I'm not a hard scientist. We're just going to talk about the sheep that live here with us in western Nebraska with just that little bit of info of how they got here. So people were crossing the Bering Sea land bridge, and that's another thing. When I was a little kid, it was the Bering Sea Bridge. It's the Bering Land Bridge now.
Yeah,
and so my brain every now and then...
There's a lot of different discoveries going on about that as far as human migration goes. There's all sorts of different things that are going on right now.
And where the humans came, animals came too, because if humans are walking over that, animals are too. And it's still the same thing. It's just I was taught for so long Bering Sea Bridge that I get stuck. Yeah, it was the land bridge, and somewhere from the time I left school till the time I started working in a school 20 years later, that had all shifted.
When did you start calling Russia, Russia, not the USSR?
Oh, God, I still slip from time to time. Oh, yeah. And what's the difference between the USSR and the Soviet Union? And no, we're not getting into that, but there's...
Well, nowadays it's less land.
Yeah.
So I guess you can't really say the USSR because you'd have to include like Moldova, Ukraine, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
and I didn't learn any of those. When it was the USSR, I learned major cities like Kyiv, but I didn't learn anything about Ukraine because that's just part of Russia.
Yeah,
Or-
it was just considered one big super
Yeah, sorry,
conglomerate.
USSR, not Russia. And then when they all broke up, I had to learn where all these places were. And now my husband is the same age as me, grew up in Britain. He knows where all they're at. And he gives me crap. I'm like, dude, I can point to the general region where Kazakhstan, Kurdistan, all the stands are. I can point to the general area where they're at, but I get them mixed up because I didn't actually learn them in school because we were told it wasn't important.
Yeah.
He was taught this is important, learn it, so he knows it.
Because we might go to war with them again.
Yeah. Oh, God. So, but back to our happy bighorn sheep. In 1940, Ian McTaggart Cohen split the species into 7 subspecies, and in 1993, Ramey and colleagues used DNA testing to determine 7 was too many species. North America is home to 2 species of mountain sheep, Ovis canadensis and Ovis dolly. So, that's pretty much what you're learning right now. In 1940, this dude says, yeah, there's 7 species. And then 93, so 53 years later, this dude's like, hey, we can figure this out through DNA. And that's how science works. You constantly go back to verify your data and yep, okay, there's only 2 species here, and this is what they are. And, I mean, that's just how evolution works, how science works.
Well, one of the main classifications of a species is when you can no longer reproduce with your previous ancestor species. And that's usually how they subdivide it. So they probably at first thought these 7 species couldn't produce fertile offspring, found out that they could, and okay, so then they subdivide it until you get to the point where there really is just 2 species that do not crossbreed for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a mule. They'll produce, but they'll produce infertile offspring like a mule. Sometimes they won't produce at all because of their regional, of where they're at in the world. Like they're just never going to cross together. And then of course you got mating habits or parts don't fit, basically. Yeah, all the wonderful bits. But yeah, that's basically how you actually get to classifying species as species.
Yeah. And then in 1993, those folks also found 3 subspecies of Ovis canadensis. And hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly as well. Latin is not my specialty. In a 2016 microsatellite and mitochondrial DNA study, the 1993 results were confirmed that 2 of the subspecies diverged from the desert bighorn during the Illinoisan glaciation about 315,000 to 94,000 years ago. And we're going to talk about one of those, which is Ovis canadensis canadensis. That's the ones that live here. So that's how we get here to this herd, and it's abbreviated O.C.canadensis. And some people may be confused that you can use the same name twice, but it happens all the time. It really does. You'll come across it on more than one species where the subspecies has the same name. What is it? Lynx and Lynx rufus and Lynx, because Lynx, if I remember correctly, I think is the Eurasian lynx. Lynx rufus is the bobcat that we find here. So there's just 2, and there's more lynx. I just can't recall what they are right now, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
In classification. So if you're not familiar with that might throw you off and you might think, what the heck, someone put a typo in there. No, it's not a typo. And it's especially not a typo when you read 18 different websites and everybody uses it. You're the dummy, not the websites.
Yeah.
And not the scientists.
Latin is the scientific universal language of classificating almost everything. So whether you're from anywhere in the world, if you whip out the Latin name, most of the time they'll know it.
My grandma was really good at that, and she only had a high school education. She was born in 22, and she could tell you what bird was in the backyard and what its Latin name was. She could tell you the squirrels, what their names were, and it was just something she was interested in, so she learned.
That's my husband in trees. He can tell you the Latin name of any tree. It's incredible. It's like, ugh. I don't know how he does it. I do not know how he does it.
Because we're not interested in trees. Whereas I could sit here and talk to you about the Lakota people all day long, and some people would just go, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trees are interesting to a point, but I'll join you on that one. They're not as interesting to me as they are to your husband. So the herds in western Nebraska are Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep, which is the English name of the O.C. canadensis, and were introduced into the area in 2001 after another subspecies, the Badlands Bighorn sheep, or Audubon's Bighorn sheep, in Latin the O.C. Auduboni, became extinct. So we had bighorn sheep here, and they became extinct. The Badlands Bighorn sheep were once native to the Great Plains of Nebraska, including the nearby Wildcat Hills, which is literally, 8 miles south of us, as well as in North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. And we'll get to what happened to the Badlands Bighorn sheep in a minute, but let's describe what these magnificent creatures look like, what they eat, and where they roam first. We'll be discussing just the Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep in this episode. Again, I think I've said that like 8 times, and I need to just stop saying it. The Rocky Mountain, I feel like, I quit watching TV around the time of when they came back from a commercial. They gave a minute recap of what just happened. Yeah, and then they came back from a commercial, and this is what we just did. And that got grating, so I quit watching TV. That was around 2009. Anyway, the Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep, or as I'm going to refer to them in this episode, the bighorn sheep, have a habitat that ranges from the Rocky Mountains in southern Canada to Colorado. They enjoy hanging out in alpine meadows and foothills near rocky cliffs at elevations ranging from 7,000 to 10,000 feet. According to a pamphlet from the Denver Zoo, they are extremely agile climbers and run easily up steep rocky slopes, such as the ones you can see in Cedar Canyon, where I've spotted them the most. They also have some pretty cool feet. The hooves of the bighorn sheep have a hard outside rim used for digging into the ground or cutting into snow or ice. The inside of the hoof is soft and spongy, like the bottom of a tennis shoe, to aid in traction. They have split hooves that pinch and hold rocks somewhat like clothespins, and the claws higher up on the foot act like brakes if the sheep starts to slide or starts to slide on some loose rock or slippery surfaces. So I don't have that adaptation on my feet.
No, you see these sheep in some weird places. Mm-hmm. You're like, how the hell did you do that?
Well, now you know, because now you know how their feet work. Mm-hmm. Bighorn sheep are agile climbers that can climb up steepy, rocky slopes with ease. They can jump 7 feet or 2 meters across wide crevices in their rugged habitat and can even turn in midair, landing on small ledges of rock. Even young lambs can scamper across rocky terrain. Their climbing ability helps bighorn sheep escape predators, including mountain lions and coyotes. I have never seen them, turn midair. I know.
Yeah, I don't get to see them jump a whole lot.
Yeah, I've seen them run up the side of the biggest butte there at Cedar Canyon that I've climbed up. I've seen them run up there. I just haven't seen them jumping to even look to see if they turn midair. But I mean, we can kind of do that. But we're
jump
also
and turn in midair.
Yeah,
I guess if you're like a diver and you had enough time in midair.
I bet if you stood over there right now and jumped up, you could turn to your left before you went back down.
That's true.
But we're also on 2 feet. They're on 4. So how awesome is that? Sorry, these dudes are awesome, and I hate everybody that shoots them every year and puts in for the lottery, which I'm not going to talk about because all the bighorn sheep live happy little lives out here. That's my world, and that's where I'm going to live. Bighorn sheep eat grasses such as horsetail, bluegrass, June grass, needlegrass, and wheatgrass during the summer, with woody items like willow, alder, and some evergreens making up their winter diet. They don't spend a lot of time grazing, but they do spend a ton of time chewing their cud.
So they're rumens.
Yes.
So they're like cows.
Mm-hmm. In that sense, yeah.
4-chamber stomach.
Oh, I didn't get into that. I probably should have looked that up. It didn't even occur to me to look that up.
Yeah.
See, that's why you're here, so you can add this important detail in.
Yeah, it's another thing I did last year. I did a whole thing about rumens. There you go.
There you go. That's what they eat, but a lot of other animals native to this area also prey upon them, including coyotes, golden eagles, mountain lions, and wolves. And, I know a golden eagle could tear me up. I can't imagine what it would do to a bighorn sheep if it got a hold of it.
Yeah, those things I've seen those out past Harrison. They're huge, and I wouldn't want to get in their way.
No. I've had a bald eagle lay in my lap, a dead one, and Omaha Indian friend of mine showed it to me. She had petitioned the government.
Oh, that's right. You were telling me about that.
Yeah, and it was huge, way bigger than I thought, and it was heavy. And I was thinking, I don't want this guy messing with me. And I think golden eagles are slightly bigger than bald eagles.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe they're the bigger ones.
Yeah. So feel bad for both because golden eagles got to eat, but I don't want to see a bighorn sheep die. So
yeah,
I'm just going to turn my car around and go the other way because I don't want to see that happening.
But please don't shoot our birds.
Yeah.
It's very, very illegal to shoot any raptors of any kind in the United States of America.
Yeah.
So don't
your
shoot
law.
raptors. But yeah, that's a big, big no-no.
Yeah.
And it's not appreciated out here.
No. And someone will turn you in if they see you doing it.
If not, maybe take a few shots
Yeah.
and see how you like it.
The cops will be like, well, Connor, where did the guy go? I'm guessing the hospital because I shot him.
I told him to run. Flap his arms real fast.
So bighorns are also social animals. They hang out in herds from 10 to 100. During the spring and summer, they tend to range closer to a band of 10 with a dominant ram, while the winter see the herd grow in size with lots of females and young. And that's when I've seen them. I haven't seen the bighorn around here at all during the summer close up. It's all been winter time when I saw them with the little babies, the females, and the younger males. They usually only get together to mate, and that's probably why I only saw them in groups in the wintertime. Rams live in bachelor groups, and ewes live in herds with younger lambs. Lambs are born in the spring and walk soon after birth. They nurse up to 6 months. Males leave their mother's group around 2 to 4 years of age, while the females stay with their herd for life. Males are known as rams and females are ewes. EWES, in case you're wondering how that's spelled. Females mature around 2.5 years old. Gestational periods are about 180 days or 6 months, so 3 months less than a typical human. Females give birth to a single lamb. Lambs can this is where I've found some not exact information. This data said that they can stand up immediately after birth and can run around, including climbing up slopes usually by the next day. And the immediately part isn't in every bit of documentation I found. Some said, yes, it comes out immediately, stands up, and then others, it comes out and a short time later. So like an hour or so. To me, that's still kind of immediate. Yeah. Yeah.
It's good enough for me. I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't stand up for what? A year or two? I don't know. I'd have to ask my mom. But
Been at least a year for me.
yeah, I would think at least a year for most kids before they can stand up. So it's kind of like we're nitpicking the language here, but I just want people to be aware that both those versions are out there, and you could still view it as immediately, depending on how specific you want to get with the use of that word. It's probably something I'm stressing over that no one else will. So bighorn sheep are also born with little horn buds, which make them super cute. They are weaned by their moms between 4 and 6 months, typically by the beginning of winter. And at this point, they weigh 75 pounds and they can handle themselves. I'm not fighting with anything that weighs 75 pounds, except for maybe a child, because I could still take a child. But these guys can run at me and ram me and knock me over and stomp on me. And a little human child that weighs 75 pounds, not so much. I can handle a human because I know how humans work. But I'm not messing, because you're not just getting a 75-pound bighorn sheep coming after you. Mama's going to be nearby too, so not messing with them. Whereas a human child, if they weigh 75 pounds and they start messing with me, what's mom and dad going to say? Good luck there, Junior. They let them find out the hard way not to pick on bigger people. So during rutting seasons, you'll see rams butting each other in contests to determine dominance and who is going to get the best picks for mating. Males also typically don't mate until they are 6 years old. Their horns can weigh up to 50 pounds. I haven't seen any clashes of horns myself, but I have seen yaks during rutting season. It's an awesome sight, but don't get too close.
Oh, no. I've seen a couple bucks go at it during rutting season. That's pretty fun to watch, too.
Yeah. And maybe one day I'll see them during rutting season. I just haven't. I've not been in the right place, right time, so to speak, and I don't go out hunting bighorn sheep just for pictures. If they happen to be there and I can get a cool picture, then I get a cool picture. They're loud, and they would probably crush me. So they're loud. They're not making noise. Their horns are very loud, and the horns would probably crush me as I'm trying to get a picture. So if I ever come across that, I really hope I have Steve's zoom lens with me. Get a zoom lens, folks, for any pictures of wildlife you're going to take. It does cost a bit, but if you can save up for it, it's better to keep your distance and zoom in, because then you can get awesome candid shots, and you're not scaring the crap out of animals, and they don't accidentally attack you. And stay away from, really just stay away from them at all during the rutting season, and don't get close to babies of any kind ever.
Well,
because
don't get close to them in general.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Yeah.
Most of the times, I don't know, here I don't see it as much, but if you go out to the Black Hills, they'll be on the side of the road. You don't have to get out of your car. You just have to roll down your window, take your pictures. They're pretty docile as long as you don't get out of your car. You start messing with those babies, and they get pretty angry.
And that's specifically why a couple of years ago, Paul and I went to Custer State Park.
That's where they are mostly.
Yeah. Because I wanted to get some nice shots of bison and pronghorn, and antelope, and I knew that was a safe place to do it.
Yeah, it is.
So that's where I went, and I got my pictures. I did get a couple of bighorn sheep pictures there, but that wasn't my purpose, because I had already gotten my bighorn sheep pictures that I wanted, and I'm like, if I come across them, I come across them, and I'll...
They seem to love coming out in the rain. That's when they like to be towards the roads the most. I don't know if that's because it's easier to navigate, because the roads take them to where they need to go anyway.
Right.
So they can traverse, or they can just go on the road. So I think on the wetter days, instead of stumbling through those cliffs, they just go on the roads.
Okay.
And they'll walk alongside. They won't be in the middle of the road. They'll be on the far right of the road. It's almost like they know exactly what they do.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. So if you're gonna if you really want to get close to them, but still don't touch them.
Don't touch them, especially if you're on like a motorcycle. Maybe keep it your safe distance, an arm's worth at least, and still even then be careful because they still might butt you if they don't like that noise. I know the bison will.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I've relayed that story before to you about the motorcycle dude when I was up there.
Oh yeah,
and what the dominant male bison did, and I thought for sure my car was going to get destroyed, but he deftly went past. I would say maybe 2 or 3 millimeters was how far he was from my car. But when he came charging, I looked at Paul and I was just like, our car's done. And he goes, and then just narrowly missed it. But he was focused on that stupid motorcyclist that was to the left of my car. Yep. And he moved at the last minute, went right around my car, and then was right there to that guy. And I was sitting there going, you know what, dude? If this bison wrecks your motorcycle, you deserve it because you're a jerk.
Yeah, they hate it when you start revving up. Don't be one of those jerks that's just sitting there going wrong. Yep. They hate that. They hate that so much.
And the dude was doing that because he wanted to get past. And I'm going. You do see an entire herd of bison crossing the road. Yeah, you're not going to get there. There's at least a dozen cars parked on both sides of the road, and we're just sitting there waiting, taking our pictures. There's other people that got out, and they were like 3 car lengths away. They didn't even get close. And then this guy just rolls up and starts revving his engine to try and scare them. And I'm like, really? You want to scare a herd of bison? I hope they all run you over. Yep.
And after working there for 3 years, even as an employee, you learn patience. You're not. Sometimes I'm late for work because the bisons wouldn't let me out of my dorm or my room. That's a real legitimate excuse. Yeah. That was real. There's nothing fake about that. It's like, no, seriously, I had to wait for an hour till the herd passed through because I couldn't get out my door and to my car. That's happened. Yeah. That's been a real thing. Everybody understands.
Yep.
It is what it is.
It's legit, and it's their home.
Yeah.
We just kind of invaded it. So, and I'm not fighting with a bison. I don't care how small it is. I'm not fighting with a bighorn sheep. Same thing with little antelopes. They got big horns. They can still kill me, and they can go where they want. Yeah. You want to learn patience? Go hang out up there for a while. While we would be crushed by those horns, the bighorns are not crushed by their horns. Their skulls and massive muscles absorb the force from those blows when they're banging on each other. So we're sitting here thinking, oh God, headache, because I'm sure everyone has head-butted someone in life. Your head hurts.
Right. Even in soccer, when you do it wrong, it's like, ow, because there's a right way to do it. Where it's like perfectly square on your head and you don't feel it, and you do it slightly wrong, you definitely feel it. Yeah. And I was one of those kids, I could never get that square part on my head to bounce it off the way you're supposed to. It'd go like on the side, it'd be like, ow, F, man, Jesus.
So I have read several places that the sounds from the clashing horns can be heard a mile away. I really want to hear the sound now.
I've heard the sounds, and I always mistook them out in the Black Hills for wood falling, or like branches falling, or even a tree falling sometimes, because it almost makes like a crack 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 sound.
Really? Wow. Okay, see, so now we got to be, instead of being Bigfoot hunters, we need to be bighorn sheep hunters, so we can go record their sounds. That's true.
It'd be easier to find than Bigfoot.
So another cool thing about their horns is that they have growth rings, which makes it easy to tell how old they are. And I thought that was awesome because learning anthropology growing up and in my archaeology classes in college, you learn about dendrochronology, which is dating things through tree rings.
I love dendrochronology.
And I was like, oh my God, this is just like that. That's awesome. So now I also want to see horns from a bighorn sheep that died naturally of old age surrounded by its family, and then we look at its horns.
So I wonder what that's called. If it's called endocrinology with trees, is it still called endocrinology with the bones?
I think the dendro part of dendrochronology is the dendro is something Latin with the tree. So I would assume it's something Latin with them. And I would have to go find someone who studies them to know what that's called.
Because I go to Gibbon and ask her.
Yeah, because I
Forrest.
did go to look, but I couldn't find anything online, and maybe I was just looking in the wrong scientific place for it.
Yeah. Because are bighorn sheep the only species that does that ring trick, or are there other species that have horns that do that ring trick?
That's a good question.
Bison.
Maybe I should send Gutsick Gibbon a little email and say, hey, I learned this thing, and do all animals like this?
Listen to us talk about this nonsense for a second or two.
And then she'll do a response video, and these two amateurs.
At least she's one of the nicer ones.
Oh yeah,
as far as
that
what
is
she does put down. At least she's nice about it.
That's one of the things I like about her. She's like, oh, no, my lovely human apes. That's not how it is. And I'm like, oh, she's about to smack down somebody.
Right.
So Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep are also the largest of all the wild sheep in North America. According to the National Park Service, muscular males can weigh over 300 pounds and stand over 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Females are roughly half this size. Most bighorn sheep live about 8 years, but they can live up to 20. That age is rare in the wild, though. It makes me kind of sad because the awesome shots I got of the bighorns that I took were about 7 years ago. And so all those bighorn sheep that I took pictures of are probably gone now. Just because that's nature, that's how nature works. And when I learned this, I did stop reading for a little bit because I got sad. I'm like, those sheep are just cool sheep. But
I also wonder, because how the females and the males segregate themselves. I wonder amongst the males if they're, you only have so long before you get kicked out of the herd. Mm-hmm. And then you're by yourself, and once you're by yourself, it makes a big difference when you're with the herd. And I don't know if that's what they do, but I know in other species that does happen. So that you get to an age, you're not the I hate using this word, the alpha male anymore. So you're just kicked out.
Dominant male.
That's a better word. Dominant male. Because alpha male is just that's a stupid word. It's all.
It is, and you and I. Yes.
The whole thing's been debunked. And
yep. I was just going to say, you and I already know that was debunked like a year afterwards by the same guy who did it. Yeah, he was like, oh my God, I was so wrong.
Yep.
And here we are 30 years later still saying that crap.
We are, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But that's what you get for being famous.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful as a scientist. Be a scientist or a famous scientist. You need to be. Sometimes gotta be careful.
Yep. So parasitic diseases can also plague the animals, and the herds are carefully watched and maintained for such occurrences. Sometime in 2014, if I remember correctly, I'm going by my own memory. It was I'm pretty sure it was within the first year of me working at the Star-Herald. I got hired in October of 2013, and then my colleague at the Star-Herald, Brandon, got to spend a day with scientists they were relocating some bighorn sheep from Scottsbluff County up to the Pine Ridge area to help replenish the herd there for that season. And I forget what it was, but the herd up there, I forget what disease. It was just like a minor thing, and they caught it before it spread through the whole herd. But they needed.
So it wasn't like chronic wasting disease.
I'm not sure if that's what it was. The whole thing was I tried to find the article on the Star Herald's website and I couldn't find it. But it was something, and the scientists caught it quick enough, but the herd up there in the Pine Ridge area had depleted enough that they were like, we need to take a few from down in Scottsbluff County and relocate them up there.
Sure.
And so that's what Brandon did. And Brandon was only at the paper for about a year after I started, which is why I said I think it was 2014, but I couldn't find the article on their website. So this is all my crappy memory, but I wanted to use it as an example of this is what happened, and this is how scientists helped to fix the problem so the herd didn't die out up there. They first made sure the rest of the herd up there was healthy, and they moved the healthy part of the herd away from the not healthy part, and then they replenished the healthy part of the herd with some of the younger ones here. I think they were like 2 to 4 years old that they took from here up there, and everything is fine. They haven't had to do that since then.
Yeah.
So they are, all the bighorn sheep, at least in those two places, are collared. So technically, Nebraska's game and parks, they can go and log on at any time and find out exactly where the herd is.
See, that's really cool, because these herds, they pretty much stay in this general area, right? They don't migrate greatly.
No,
They
they're
don't
usually
go out to Montana, basically. And come back.
no. They will go east a bit, because that day I went out with Steve, we were at Cedar Canyon, which is south of Gearing. Oh, I don't know, like maybe 2-3 miles south of Gearing. You're kind of on the border with Scottsbluff County and Banner County, and they stay in that area, but also east of the Wildcats, because they go in the Wildcats too, and around Hubbard's Gap to the east of there. And on that day, we took pictures, and then when we were done, Steve had asked me if I'd ever been up to Hubbard's Gap and Wright's Gap, and they're near in the same area. And while he's taking me over there, part of the herd was there. So I mean, it's all the same herd, but they kind of split in two, and they were all just chilling out over there, and I got some pictures from there too. So to us, that would be a big distance walking, but to them it's nothing. They stay right around this
that's what I
area.
mean. They don't go. They don't travel like as far as birds or others.
No, they kind of stay just in the same area. So you wouldn't even see the herd here, chilling out with the herd in the Pine Ridge area, and they go up around Chadron State Park as well. And Chadron's a 2-hour drive north of us, and those two herds don't intermingle.
So how long would it take for them to become two different species?
Good question.
I don't have the answer to that question.
I don't either.
It'd take probably quite a bit, because that's kind of more on the macroevolutionary scale. So you're talking about generations upon generations, and nothing changes. Like what you just said, taking some of the population and put it to the other. That's selection. So that's as if we keep doing that, there won't be any division of the species.
Right.
Because we're keep on introducing the genetic material across.
But if we didn't interfere at all.
If we didn't interfere and we assumed that both species were healthy and they lived on and on and on, I don't know. I don't know how many generations it would take.
Yeah.
Or when you would notice it. You would notice it eventually, because the species wouldn't mate with each other, but that could take, like again, horses and donkeys, they can still mate. Yeah. But then their offspring can't mate. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have to ask a scientist that would know that for sure.
The two species that you said that was classified into from the 5 would be interesting to know.
Yeah, because the one is up in Alaska.
Yeah, and I would assume, if I know my biology right, and if anyone's listening, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but it's a different species because it will not or cannot mate successfully with this species here.
I believe that's correct.
I mean,
because that's why they're two subspecies.
If it could mate, it could produce, but that offspring could not itself produce, so it is still considered different species. Then that could be, or it might not. They might not have anything to do with each other. They might just look at each other and be like, "Nope."
Yeah, they meet each other. They technically could, but they don't want to.
Yep.
So the bighorn sheep are also susceptible to pneumonia.
Yep.
And
I actually did know that one.
Okay, cool.
That was weird. I don't know. That was something I learned up in Custer because we had a bout of that going around.
Okay.
Pneumonia with the goats, yeah.
Okay.
Or sheep, sorry.
Sheep. That's all right. So according to the National Park Service, the general coloration of Rocky Mountain bighorn is brownish or grayish brown on the back, yellowish white on the underparts, with a whitish patch on the rump, which is very conspicuous. The tail is short and dark. The brownish hairs are darkest on the head, throat, legs, and along the narrow strip down the center of the back. The body is densely covered with coarse hair, and on some specimens there has been found a slight undercoat of woolly hairs. The eyes are golden yellow, the horns brown, and the hoofs black. The adult rams have a length of 60 to 70 inches, height at shoulder from 38 to 42 inches, a stocky body usually weighing between 200 and 300 pounds, massive circular horns which curve backward about the side of the head. The females, often called ibex, are shorter and more slender than the rams, weighing only about 2/3 as much, and they possess small, slender, slightly curved horns. So if you just heard the ibex, you might have perked up because you might be thinking of a different animal, which I did, and I spend way too much time figuring this out.
Thinking of the African ibex.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, an ibex is a type of mountain goat, and it's something completely different. I noted it here because I guess the National Park Service refers to females as such. So I did some brief digging, and ibex is Latin for goat. And Lewis and Clark ran into this dilemma when they came across the ewes when they came out here. So I finally found some clarification on this website called Discover Lewis and Clark. And this is what they wrote. Somewhat surprisingly, it was William Clark who unwittingly injected a dose of confusion into their records of not one but two species of quadrupeds. In short, he and Lewis couldn't tell a sheep from a goat. More than a century was to go by before all the details came into focus.
I gotta say that's kind of fair, though, because if you're not familiar with sheep and goats and don't see them all the time, I think you could easily mistake a sheep for a goat.
Yeah. I also want to read to you a description from the National Park Service from their wildlife portfolio of the Western National Parks. There's no author credited, which happens a lot with the National Park Service. It's only been, I think in the last 30 years, they even started crediting photographers. I know the Monument has better records. Almost all of their photos, they know who took them, but in general, if you took a photo and was like, here, National Park Service, here's my awesome photo, if it's an awesome photo, they would take it and archive it and maybe write down what year it was taken, but they didn't always, credit the photographers. And even when I did that book on the monument, a lot of times it was photograph courtesy National Park Service because there was no photographer that I could credit. And they still do that on their website a lot. They have things written that don't get credited to the folks that wrote it. And you know me, if I know who wrote it, I'm going to credit them. So anyway, they wrote, bighorns usually are most active in the early morning, and experience with these animals in Glacier National Park indicates their greatest feeding activity occurs before noon, and often by 10 a.m. or thereabouts they retire to the base of some protecting cliff and bed down. And That's exactly where I found those bighorn that day. So I observed the same behavior. On September 1st, 1931, at Glacier National Park, I found that a band of bighorns came down regularly during the night or early morning to a mineral spring near a lake. So again, here the person is writing in the first person, and we don't know who it is. I assume it was a park ranger that was there. However, by sunup, the band was always back up on the mountainside. This flock consisted of 6 ewes, 6 lamb, and 2 young rams. The lambs were well grown but still nursing. I spoke a bit before about the Badlands bighorn sheep, but there's still a big debate about what happened to them. So basically, Lewis and Clark accidentally introduced confusion with the ibexes. They are technically called, I guess, ibex, but not really, and some people still use it, some people don't. And I'm not kidding, it took me a half an hour of searches online to figure that out, because I'm going, to me, the ibex is this other animal. So, and then I wish this person had been credited, because then at least we would have a time. Like if it was a park ranger that wrote this and they gave this date, we would know roughly one of 2 or 3 park rangers would have been the one that wrote this. But that's the best that I had. I get frustrated by that a lot. I bring that up often when I can't find who wrote a source. It frustrates me because
Can't cite my source.
Yeah. So I'm going to quote myself here about the Badlands bighorn sheep from something else that I wrote. Accounts claim the Badlands bighorn sheep were driven out of Nebraska in the late 1890s, while others say they were hunted to extinction in the early 1900s. Still similar time range, regardless of what happened to them. Still others say the subspecies survived until 1926. Some biologists claim it was never a subspecies at all, but a variant of the big Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. Regardless of what happened, the bighorn sheep were pushed out of the area due to habitat invasion by cattle and domestic sheep, disease spread by domestic livestock, respiratory disease, and unregulated hunting. So, more than likely, it was a combination of all of that. I don't think it was any one single thing that caused the Badlands bighorn sheep to go extinct. And it could very well be that it was misclassified, but if it wasn't, then all of these other things could absolutely be contributing factors to their demise.
Or were they extinct or pushed out east?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. What if the bighorn sheep we have now are the Badlands sheep? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you could know, because you could get some sort of bone or fossil record from that area and compare it to these ones and probably find that they're not, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it'd still be interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
To see if they were completely wiped out, or if they just moved along.
Yeah.
Went on their way.
Yeah. And something else just popped in my head too, like Homo sapiens, who are us, and the Neanderthals are technically Homo as well, and we know we interbred with them, and is that a factor of why they disappeared?
Could be.
And as far as I know, I don't know if we have any samples that we could DNA compare. So yeah, they're gone. That's the best we can do at this point in time, but things can change, and we can find more evidence as time goes on, and maybe in our lifetime we'll be able to answer that question. So the Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep were successfully reintroduced in 1981 in the traditional bighorn range in a 500-acre enclosure at Fort Robinson State Park in northwest Nebraska. And if you go up there, they roam freely, so just depend.
Be careful.
You got to be careful, but if you want to see them, you can also ask at the information desk, and they might know where they were last spotted, but it's not a guarantee that they're there.
I wonder, is there any, do they give the information of their tracking live in live feeds at all? Because some places, like, they do that with, like, whales and dolphins and stuff. They'll give you the live feed
I don't
where
think
they are.
I don't think they do.
It's probably safe for hunting reasons,
Yeah.
I suppose. That's why they don't do that for them.
Because there have been times I've been up at Fort Robb and I've seen the bison herd, and there have been times that I haven't. And they got a lot of space. I'm not up there to wander around and see the bison. If I see them, I see them.
Yeah.
If I don't, I don't.
It's the same with Custer State Park. You might go through the entire park and never see them, especially, and if you come anytime after September, I promise you probably won't see them because they've been rounded up into one area and are now corralled for the winter. So you won't see them back out in that area until spring.
When I went, it was the first week in August, and we knew that there was a chance we wouldn't see them. So we decided to pay for the little Jeep tour thing,
tours,
and we took the first.
They know where they're at.
Yeah, we took the first one in the morning, and I guess whoever does the last one at night tells the person who's going to do the first tour in the morning where they bedded down.
Yep.
So it was easier to find them, and that was awesome. And then the next day when we woke up, I'm like, oh my God, what is that sound? Because at first I thought it was thunder and it was a horrible storm, and I'm like, that's not thunder, that's bison. And I opened the window just to see the entire herd running in front of our hotel room. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I got crappy pictures of it, but because part of the time I was just standing there looking, it didn't. Nothing clicked in my head that said, take a picture. I'm just enjoying the sight of this massive herd running in front of me.
Were they using the whips to get them excited? Just so we're clear, they don't whip the buffalo. They just use it for the noise. So that makes that crack noise, and that's what gets them going. Sometimes they have to do that to break up the herd. Sometimes it gets ridiculous, and we all just need to move on our way.
I don't actually know, because this was about 5:30 in the morning.
Oh, then probably not.
So I think they were just
not doing it too early.
Yeah, I think they were just running from wherever they were.
Yeah.
It's awesome, though.
And by the way, for anyone who goes out there, you better not have a whip on you, because it's only used for the park rangers. If they see you have a whip, you will get busted.
Hopefully you get whipped.
Whip the buffalo.
Yeah, hopefully you get whipped with your own whip.
Don't scare them. Don't do nothing. Scaring them's not going to help anything.
Yep. Don't take a selfie with them, because if I read an article that you died taking a selfie, I'm not going to have sympathy for you.
Yeah, just
let them be.
Just let them be.
In March 2001, the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission reintroduced Rocky Mountain bighorns from Colorado to the Cedar Canyon Wildlife Management Area with a herd of 22 animals. So they were 12 ewes, 6 lambs, and 4 rams. The herd is much larger today, with 51 ewes tracked by the University of Nebraska from 2018 to 2020. With further introductions from Colorado, Montana, and Alberta, there are several hundred sheep which now call western Nebraska home. So it's still technically, I guess, one herd, but they do kind of split up, like we mentioned in the beginning. But those are the common places you're going to see them, is down at Cedar Canyon and the Wildcat Hills. And, Wright's Gap and Hubbard's Gap are just to the west of the Wildcat. So it's not a surprise that you see them there, because they're called those gaps because they're literal gaps in the topography where cars can drive through. Yeah. And it's all that rocky area that the bighorn sheep love running around in. Although the reintroduction has been successful and the number of bighorn sheep is still small, the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission began a harvesting program in 1999 known as the Bighorn Sheep Management Plan, and I hate this program. I don't care how much you justify it to me. I hate this program. It was designed for maintenance and expansion of bighorn sheep population In the Pine Ridge, according to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, the plan provides for hunting and viewing opportunities while keeping bighorn sheep numbers within the carrying capacity of the habitat at acceptable levels to most landowners. Get rid of humans, and the population's going to explode. So then our question of, will they ever intermingle? Maybe. If we got rid of humans.
Yeah, well, if we got rid of humans, all sorts of things would intermingle.
Yeah.
All sorts of things would die out too.
Yeah.
The problem with overgrazing, though, is a huge problem out here because the result, as we are experienced about 4 days ago, I don't know if you were looking at our air quality.
No, I didn't. I was inside all day 4 days ago.
Most people have it on their iPhones. They'll have a little air quality thing, and we were above 500. It caps out at 500. So if you looked on the color scale, it has all the way to the highest being red. We were black.
Oh,
because there wasn't a color for us beyond that scale. That's how bad we were here, folks. That all has to do with sugar beet harvesting, dust getting kicked up, getting swirled around by the wind, and of course we don't have any snow, just lots of wind right now, and that just makes it horrible. Now, overgrazing does the same thing. Luckily, with bighorn sheep, their mouths are designed I should say unluckily, because their mouths are designed to believe the bighorn sheep are ones that don't cut, they rip. I could be wrong, because goats tend to rip. Sheep's, I think they might cut. I know cows cut.
okay.
So that's why they're not as much of a problem for overgrazing. The only problem being they don't have a food source, but doing that will of course make the Dust Bowl effect come up. So you don't want to overgraze the land because you're going to have too much dirt, and if you have too much dirt, you're not going to have grass come back, and then you're going to thin out your population.
Okay.
So basically, it's going to happen anyway. Do you want us to control it, or do you want them to do it, and you're just going to see huge herds die out? Which is more sadder. I don't know.
Yeah. See, here's Connor trying to justify the program to me.
I do justify hunting as long as it's done properly, legally, no poaching, sustained by the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, because they got the numbers. They do it. Listen to them. Stick to your tags. Don't go doing something stupid. Don't kill the babies.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Respect the land. But as for the hunting part, I think ultimately, if you're doing it by the numbers, it helps. It does.
So the fee is assessed each year for a permit auction. One Nebraska resident in the auction will be chosen to be allowed to kill a full curled ram in Banner, Box Butte, Dawes, Morrill, Scottsbluff, Sheridan, or Sioux counties, determined by the Game and Parks depending on ram availability. So there's conditions there.
And let's face it, for a hunter, you want the rams. Otherwise, these are just wild sheep. They do not taste that good, folks. Trust me. I mean, they're not like not delicacies. They're not elk. They're not venison. They taste very, very, very gamey. So you really, really want the rams for the horns, for the mount. So, yeah.
And I think it was my friend Steve that had told me, because he went out one year on one of these to document it for the paper. The Game and Parks will help you locate the herd, but you have to take the ram and you have to bring it out. The only thing Game and Parks does is says this is the herd and this is the ram you're allowed to take.
Yep. They do that at Costa State Park with the buffalo hunt.
Okay.
Yep.
And once you kill it, you have to take it out yourself. They will not help you. They will literally stand there and watch you drag it back to your vehicle or cart or whatever.
300-pound ram.
Yeah.
Have fun.
They will not help you at all take it back out. According to the 2022 brochure for the auction and donated funds from and donated funds from conservation organizations allow Nebraska to reestablish bighorns in 5 areas of the Panhandle. And since the first hunting season in 1998, the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission has reported 30 male rams were harvested in Nebraska, 11 by auction permit buyers and 19 by lottery permit winners. And these are not cheap. This is like your yearly salary. This is, Connor and I would not be, I think maybe the lottery is a little cheaper, but it's still super expensive.
Yeah, the lottery is like the elk lottery. It's expensive. It's a couple $100, I believe. And you might not get it.
Yeah.
I think I thought the last person told me elk tickets were like $400 to $500 for the lottery.
Okay.
So
it's not cheap either. And then if you
get the ticket, you have to go find the thing. So you're only halfway there.
Yeah.
It's like winning the lottery, but finding out you have to do that much more work to get the prize.
I would rather just donate the money to the, education and conservation organizations and skip the shooting part. Or maybe
there'll always be someone to do it, because my whole argument, if the hunters aren't to do it, then the Game and Park Commission become the hunters.
We'll have to do it. Yeah.
And with like the chronic wasting disease with the elks, they had to be those hunters.
Yeah.
So it's a real thing, and I'd rather just let the hunters be the hunters. A lot of these Game and Park Commissions, they don't like to do that stuff. They didn't come into that to do that.
That's
kind of
not
thing.
why I would get into it if I did it. Yeah.
That's not why they joined that. So why force them if they don't want to?
Yeah. The herd was estimated to be about 305 in 2022, having shrunk due to disease. This caused hunting to be prohibited in 2006, 7, 10, 12, and 13. Researchers, however, continue to track and monitor the herd for its health and to better understand what happens to the herds after several bighorn sheep succumb to disease, including recovery times and any habitat preference changes, which I thought was neat too, that they're not just saying, okay, X number passed away from disease. They're also looking to see, are the bighorn sheep going, okay, we used to live in this area and a whole bunch of us died. We move and to this area.
What happened after that Cedar Canyon fire this last summer? Destroyed a bunch of habitat.
Yeah, a lot of them moved over to the Wildcat Hills area. And I didn't get out there this year, but in last year, I guess now, but in 2023, it was a year after the fire that I went out, and there was still some bits that were burned, but it was growing back pretty well. So I would imagine that at some point the bighorn sheep will go back to that area, but you got to give it time for all the grasses to grow back.
Yeah, good old prairie fires. That's what's different between here and California, is where I can't imagine what they might be going through with that mudslide thing.
Yeah.
'Cause I guess it's only a point something of an inch. Doesn't even have to be an inch. It's like point something of an inch is all the water they need to have a catastrophic mudslide.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen too much out here because, well, one, we don't have a lot of water.
Yeah.
And two, our grass systems, when they burn up, the roots system usually is still strong and intact. So even if it does rain, the roots deep down will hold all that dirt in. Whereas California, because of all of the work it's done and all the, what would you call it? Infrastructure.
Oh, all the infrastructure. Yeah.
All the digging up,
Yeah.
Yep.
And they have extra to deal with. We just needed to put the fire out and then just let nature restore itself.
Yep.
Because if I remember correctly, that huge fire in the Cedar Canyon and Carter Canyon area, I think only one house was lost. I mean, granted, not a lot of people live out there anyway, but because of the way the land is, the homes were preserved.
Yeah, the people that do live out there, for the most part. And it's a grass brush fire. So I think the weird thing is, like, California kind of has similar plant life than we have and similar climate. The big difference is all that infrastructure just made it all.
Yeah.
It was the houses being next to each other that was the problem, not so much the hill behind it. The hill behind it will grow back and probably grow back fairly fast. But all those houses now,
they're gone.
will be gone. And then, like you said, like the mudslide that could happen.
Mudslides are awful.
I couldn't imagine. I have a buddy. I'm really, really hoping he's all right and he keeps going. But I don't know. It's pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I would take the insurance money and relocate like the bighorn sheep. But
that's not possible for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not possible. I mean, a lot of these people in these neighborhoods are generational families. They've been there. Their family's been there. Their mothers, grandmothers have all been there. Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
It's kind of different from you and me. You can go back to New York, I guess, if Nebraska goes to hell, and I'll go wander off somewhere. I'll go somewhere. So it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. And I wouldn't go back to New York, but yeah, I probably would wander off somewhere and just find a new place to live because I don't have ties, so to speak. I mean, I do have ties here in Scottsbluff, but they're not such that I would stay. I mean, I even had that conversation with my mom and my grandma, and when we moved out here, and I had told them, I said, I love you guys to death, but I can't live here. I can't do this. And we have phones, and I can drive back, and I can visit, but I cannot live here anymore. It is literally killing me. And they understood, and since I turned 18 and went to college, I've lived all over. I just,
I would be pretty broken up if my house burned down because it's my childhood home. I mean, I grew up in that house, so there'd be a lot of memories that you'd have to set aside. But still, that's only one generation. I guess I can't imagine being fourth or fifth down the line and having your great somethings that used to live there and have all this California wonderful history about Sunset Boulevard and all that, and it's all gone. It's just it's too bad.
I think about the Gentry homestead here. Don Gentry, he's been retired for God knows how long. He's in his late 80s now. But man, when they moved the Gentry homestead to the Legacy of the Plains Museum, you could just see the pride just radiating out from him that his family homestead is going to survive. Oh, yeah. And we should do a story on that home because the short version is his great-grandfather went up into the Wildcats, chopped down some trees, drug it down here, got it over the river, built that homestead in Minutair, and the building still exists, and I've been in it. I documented that the day that they moved it. And I don't know if his kids have, super big ties to it, but he definitely did, and you could see it. And there were 4 generations born in that house. Yeah, so if that house suddenly went away tomorrow, I would probably call Don and say, "Hey, is there anything I can do?"
Yeah, it'd be devastating.
Yeah.
Even though no one lives there. I mean, and it's just it's an old homestead house.
Yeah, they basically turned it into a museum attraction so that you can see how people lived at that point in time.
And it is wonderful, but could you imagine like something like that burning? It's just
then your entire neighborhood's gone. It's
So my friends from Alta, so and there's a lot of things you guys can go do if anyone's listening and wants to go donate to the Alta Fire Conservation. I think I'll talk to Irene and try to get my buddy's information on our page.
Yeah,
because he sent me one, so we'll try to do that. So if any of you guys have time to donate, don't go there, just donate. That's what I've been told a lot. My friends, they don't want you there to help. They really just need more or less I hate to say it, they need your money for the reasons we all need money, but they really just need their time to recover peacefully, quietly together as a community. They don't need people out there snapping cameras, making this into more of a scene than it already is. So if you could donate, awesome. If you can travel, don't. Stay at home.
And that's one thing I've learned about the after disasters in general, it is better to give money. Like you see people,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to collect water and food and clothing and we're going to drive down there to help out. They actually say don't do that either.
No.
Collect money.
Collect money
And
send it to
and
the
send
right
it,
organizations.
get
They'll
the
do
properly.
right things.
Yep.
Don't go. Be some bumpkin out from Scottsbluff. So I'm going to go start a water drive in L.A. and that's just going to be that's just going to be the bee's knees.
It's you're going to leave disappointed. So thankfully, we have our bighorn sheep still here, and they are actually more docile than the antelope and deer in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming. And they are always aware of their situation. When I was out there that day, they watched me cautiously. The biggest ram maintained eye contact almost the entire time I was there, and the smaller rams occasionally took note of me as I was slowly walking toward them, but they were definitely relying on that big ram to be watching me. They ate grass, then stared at me for a minute or two, and then ate some more grass, then stared at me a little bit. And I
continued.
Yes, and I was literally inching closer. And then it was apparent that the entire herd knew I was there because they all stopped eating grass and started looking at me. And I was like, I might be too close now. I was still probably 50 yards away, at least, at that point in time, and they were unsettled. So the ram with his large curved horns loomed over the herd, and through a zoom lens, it was evident this ram had been in a battle before. I couldn't see it with my eyes, but through the zoom lens I could. The end of his horns were broken in a long ago tussle because it had healed. They weren't fresh.
Yeah.
They weren't fresh cracks. The horn appeared more blunt than short, but it was also evident this ram was not to be messed with. I attempted to get closer to the herd for a better, more detailed framed picture of the large animal watching at me while he was protecting the herd. And I basically, this entire time, I walked about 25 feet, took a photograph, and then started to move forward again. And I just said 50 feet, but I have my notes here from that time. I wrote 75 feet, so it was, 75 yards. Oh my God, measurements suck. 50, 75 yards, doesn't matter. It was too close, and they decided I was too close. They looked up, they stared at me, they were done eating grass, and they took off. I took a few more pictures and tried one more time to get closer because I'm stupid, and the sheep are smarter than me, and they continued to run away from me. I can't run as fast as a bighorn sheep, and I cannot sprint up the side of a bluff. So my luck ran out, and I just stood there and I watched the herd continue to. They went up the side of the cliff, but not all of them. Some of them ate for a little bit more and then walked away, ate a little bit more. But there were like 4 or 5 of them that were up on the edge of the bluff. It'd be the cliff if you were on top. It'd be the cliff coming down. And they kind of watched me as the rest of them like ate a little bit, walked away, ate a little bit, walked away. And I decided once they started doing that, it's not worth it. I don't want to die. I don't want to spook them. I've probably already spooked them. So we're just go disappear in the distance and enjoy your bighorn sheep life. But I did get some nice photos that are on my personal website from that day. The bluffs of the Cedar Canyon Wildlife Management Area, as well as Hubbard's Gap in Banner County, provide the steep, rocky terrain bighorns use for escape as well as for lambing. They can be best viewed in winter when the rams and ewes gather together for breeding season. Again, don't get close to them. It's just you'll be able to see a big herd. And sometimes they're still tough to spot because everything else has died for the winter, so they still blend in pretty well to the background, and it's difficult sometimes to see them. Those yellow eyes blend in a heck of a lot more than you would think. Since it was still early in the day that day, we had a chance to go over to Hubbard's Gap to see if the other part of the herd was over there as well. And because Steve was driving, plumes of dust flew out from behind the wheels of the car, and that's all I saw behind me. I can tell you from experience that the road is covered in coarse dirt, and it makes it easier for lighter cars to fishtail if they go too fast. I didn't see bighorn sheep over there, but my little tiny Toyota Yaris, yes, does fishtail if you go too fast. The road there by Hubbard's Gap is surrounded by bluffs, so it's a nice spot for the bighorn sheep to graze in before running up the side of whatever landmass they decide that day. Oh my God, an hour and a half. After slowing down to take in the view, 10 bighorn sheep sauntered out of the tall prairie grass and stood in the middle of the dusty road, blocking us from driving. My friend Steve at the time had a Jeep, and we're just here. So I unrolled the window, hoisted myself partway out the window, took a bunch of pictures. The bighorn sheep that were in the middle of the road just stared at me like, what are you doing? And we were less than 50 feet away. I was able to take a few pictures of them before they turned and ran up into a nearby field. Some of them sat down in the field and they blended into the scenery and I couldn't see them. Others stopped, looked back real quick, and then trotted away in the distance toward Sheep Mountain, which is located on private property. So once they had crossed the road, they were on private property, and we're not going to follow them there because we don't have permission to be on their property. So if you visit southern Scottsbluff to photograph the bighorn sheep, I recommend you bring at minimum a 300 millimeter lens, though a 500 millimeter lens would be a better choice. The bighorn sheep are skittish around humans, so don't get close to them. Don't try to get close to them. Don't run at them. They're sensitive to anything humans do, including loud noises, which causes them to stress out. Steve and I have been on top of Cedar Canyon just talking like this and looking at the bighorn sheep and the deer below. There was a herd of each. They looked up. They heard us up there. And we just kind of looked at each other and laughed, and then we stood and just watched them for a while because we were like, holy crap, they could hear us. If you want to go hiking at the Cedar Canyon Wildlife Management Area from Gearing, travel south on Highway 71, turn right onto Carter Canyon Road, travel west on Carter Canyon Road for 6.1 miles and turn left onto County Road 17 and just follow the dirt road for about 2 miles till you reach a fork in the road. Stay on the right and you'll see a sign for Cedar Canyon, like literally right there. And then the parking area is 0.2 of a mile down the road. To reach Hubbard's Gap from Gearing, which you can drive through anytime you want, travel east on Highway 92 for 21 miles from Gearing or from Scottsbluff, and turn south onto County Road 34 at McGrew to County Road 67. Both county roads are labeled as Hubbard's Gap Road. At the intersection of County Road 67 and 42, Sheep Mountain can be seen looking southeast. Chimney Rock National Historical Site can be seen to the northeast if it's clear outside. And while in these locations, it's highly suggested to wear a reflective safety vest or bright clothing as hunting is allowed in the area. You don't want to get mistaken for
You don't want
something.
to get Dick Cheney'd.
Yeah. So a couple of quick facts about the bighorn sheep here. In 1981, 12 bighorns were released into a 500-acre enclosure at Fort Robinson State Park. In 2001, 22 bighorn from Colorado were released onto Cedar Canyon Wildlife Management Area. In 2005, 49 bighorn from Montana were released on the Bighorn Wildlife Management Area in the Pine Ridge area near Crawford. In 2007, 51 from Montana were released on private land in the eastern Wildcat Hills near McGrew, and that's likely what I saw that day was part of that herd. In 2012, 41 from Alberta were released at Sowbelly Canyon, northeast of Harrison, Nebraska, which is up near that Crawford area. Mm-hmm. And in 2014, 26 bighorn were moved from the Wildcat Hills to the Pine Ridge, which was that incident that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah. And this will continue to add genetic diversity so the herds won't naturally die out.
Yeah.
Because, of course, if the one herd, if nothing gets introduced, that could happen.
Yeah. So if you come out here and you see them, now you kind of know the areas where they're at, what to look for. Be kind to them. Don't harass them. You can come here and harass Connor and I and tell us what dummies we are. Or I guess me, because I'm the one who wrote the whole episode, so I'm the dummy about the bighorn sheep.
I'm just the sheep behind everybody.
We are also looking to do an episode on a gentleman that was recently released from prison. He's 80 years old.
That's right.
Yes, I want to do the episode. I want to do it right. I thought about getting it as our next one, but it's going to take more than a week for me to get all the... Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, and we probably need to talk about it more to see what angle we want to go with this one.
Yeah, because there's many angles we could take with it, and lots of things there. Maybe we'll just sit one week and talk about it, because I've watched a couple of documentaries in the last week about the Lakota and Standing Rock. Mm-hmm. On my plane ride to see my mom last week, I watched The Lakota Nation versus the United States. It's an excellent documentary. And, maybe we just sit and chat one day about it all.
Well, this one fascinates me because it has a lot to do. I mean, my whole childhood, I remember this particular person, all the protests that were outside the Fed building to free him. There's a lot that I remember about this. So yeah.
I've been hearing about him my whole life too, and it did make me happy that he's freed. Some people are not happy about it, but that's something we can delve into too.
That's really the fascinating part. Is it's the story. I mean, it would have. I mean, it happened only when you would have been 9, 10-ish. My mother was only 9.
Yeah.
So
because your mom's what, 2 years older than me? Or
I'm not talking age months. My mom. We'll just leave that alone.
She is roughly my age.
She was only 9 when that happened. I, of course,
you weren't even
wasn't
thought.
even an idea yet.
Yeah.
So by the time I came around to notice it, he had well been in prison for 20 years, if not more. So
for me, I had roughly heard about him most of my young life, but being fully aware of what was going on, he was probably in jail at least a decade.
Yeah.
By the time I learned everything, and I had a book about him at one point in time. It's really interesting, but it's a thing that I want to do right, because I know other people have done stuff about him before he was released, and then when he was released, of course, all the news articles come out and stuff. And
well, and this is some perfect time to maybe see if we have any Lakota brothers or sisters that want to come talk about it.
Well, I was actually going to ask Jerry, because Jerry was born and raised in North Dakota, and that's where he's from.
Yeah, so he would have been.
So I'm like, maybe Jerry has some insight into that, because Jerry's 20 years older. Jerry is the same age as my mom, so Jerry is almost 23 years older than me.
Yeah, and I would love to talk to someone who maybe was a part of AIM or was up in the AIM movement during the time when it was strong. So yeah. Hopefully that doesn't spoil it for next time. If anyone of you guys don't know who we're already talking about, you guys should.
You should. It's January 2025, and he's Lakota. So
figure it out. Big news.
I forget which band. But anyway, that's it for this time, talking about bighorn sheep. We'll be back next time with something else, hopefully cool. And honestly, Connor, the counter here says 1 hour, 38 minutes, and 32, 33, 34, 35 seconds.
I talked an hour and a half about sheep.
I know. I was like, are we even going to make an hour?
An hour and a half about sheep.
Yeah.
That's about as Nebraskan as you can get.
Oh, wait, we got to do corn and
so next
soybeans.
you're going to talk about corn.
Like, we haven't done the history of the sugar factory, so there you go. I think our next couple episodes are going to be a little shorter because there's some things I've had on the back burner for a while, and
That just aren't as interesting as sheep.
no, they're not. And right now, one of the things I want to share, I have 300 words of notes, and so even if I doubled that in writing, I'm still not even at 1,000 words yet. So I've got a few things like that maybe we'll just, I don't want to say churn out, but we could do a couple at a time. But it's all interesting. It's all about Western Nebraska. It's all about what we do here. And we'll share more with you next time. I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
And this has been Storytelling on the Plains.